Okay, excellent, excellent. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome in. Excellent. So we'll go ahead and get started here in the next minute. We just want to make sure that everyone has a time to log in. We are recording this session and we will be starting momentarily. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for coming and welcome to the LARC Regional Program Advisory on Marketing and Publishing. The session is being recorded and everyone and the participants that have registered will be emailed the PowerPoint slides and the workbook at a later time. So my name is Pablo Martinez. I am the Assistant Program Manager for Workforce Development here at the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation. LAEDC is a nonprofit organization that serves Los Angeles County, and our mission is to reinvent our economy to collaboratively advance the growth and prosperity for all. So we appreciate you joining us today. This advisory is brought to you in part by our LAEDC team. Jermaine Hampton is Vice President of Workforce Development and Special Projects. Jose Pelayo, Director of Workforce Development, Alicia Nian, Program Manager for Workforce Development, and myself as well. So the LA19 is leading industry education partners to collaboratively strengthen our region's talent development ecosystem. So some of the things you can expect from today's advisory is data-driven research on the supply and demand for talent, industry councils, and regional program advisories to come, and developing work-based learnings and employment opportunities for the future. So it's with my pleasure to introduce Dr. Narne Makijan, Chair and Assistant Vice President for the Los Angeles Regional Consortium.
Thank you so much, Pablo, and good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining us. We are very excited to have you all here. I want to thank all of our LA19 college faculty, deans, staff, and of course, all of our industry partners that are here with us today. Your expertise is vital to the success of the Marketing and Publishing Program Advisory, and we really, truly appreciate your participation. Special thanks to the LAEDC team and Luke Meyer and the LA Center of Excellence team for organizing today's advisory. We do have a few of our LARC staff, our apprenticeship program manager and employer engagement team on as well. So thank you so much for their support and engagement. As Pablo mentioned, LARC is a consortium of LA's 19 community colleges. We are dedicated to closing the skills gap and increasing economic and social mobility by training a diverse, highly skilled workforce. As the marketing and publishing landscape evolves with automation, AI, and digital transformation, aligning our programs with industry needs is more important than ever. So today's advisory is a valuable opportunity for our region to engage with industry leaders, assess workforce needs, and strengthen pathways that are equitable and responsive to student and employer needs. Thank you so much for your ongoing support and collaboration, and we look forward to a meaningful discussion today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makijan. Next, I'd like to introduce up Jermaine Hampton, Vice President of Workforce Development and Special Projects at LAEDC.
Hello all, and good morning, and thank you so much for those words, Dr. Makijan. Definitely a big thank you to all of our employer partners and obviously our faculty and staff that are on the call today. So really important discussion today. One thing that, I definitely want to highlight is the storytelling, right? I mean, when we're talking about marketing and publishing, like how are we telling our stories? What is the narrative behind our organizations, behind our colleges, behind our people? And so that's really something very important, and it's something that is really key to a lot of the work that happens with marketing and publishing, which actually, trends across multiple different industry clusters. And so the other part that I just kind of want to highlight, obviously, is, LADC, we've been doing this type of work for 40 plus years at this point. We really integrate a comprehensive approach as it pertains to engagement. We leverage our research and data and critical analysis that really drives business assistance and how we scale small, medium, and large businesses, many of which could be marketing or small marketing firms and publishing companies as well. And then workforce development, and then obviously international trade, because we operate as a subsidiary of the World Trade Center LA. And so this approach really supports industry cluster development and regional growth through robust public-private partnerships, fostering a more equitable and sustainable economic landscape. And so we really thank you all today for joining this conversation. It's much appreciated, and definitely looking forward to all of the action steps that we take after this meeting, so that we can actually bring a lot of these opportunities to fruition, and then obviously ensure that our industry partners stay connected with our education partners to really ensure those equitable talent pipelines continue here in LA County. Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine. I'd like to introduce now LADC to present LADC's findings and data on the current industry in LA County. Matthew Skyberg, our senior GIS research analyst working in our Institute of Applied Economics.
Thank you, Pablo. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for spending your Friday morning with us. So as Pablo said, my name is Matthew Skyberg, and I'm with the Institute for Applied Economics at LADC. And today I'm going to be walking through some of the key insights from our recent analysis of the marketing and publishing industry in Los Angeles County. Next slide. So we'll start with how we define the marketing and publishing industry. We use NAICS codes, or National Industry Codes. And at the 4-digit level, we had 5418, which covers advertising, public relations, and related services, and 5131, which includes newspaper, periodical, book, and directory publishers. And then to get a more comprehensive or deeper look, we also included 3 6-digit sub-industries: marketing consulting services, marketing research and public opinion polling, and then media streaming, social networks, and other content providers. And from the last one, we specifically excluded film and television production from the last category, just to focus on the core marketing and publishing functions in both traditional and digital media. Next slide. So the marketing and publishing industry is a cornerstone of communication, creativity, and commerce. In 2014, it employed over 53,500 people, and it's steadily growing, peaking in 2022 with more than 60,900 jobs. And although there's a decline in 2020, the industry did rebound quickly. It added over 4,300 jobs between 2020 and 2022, before leveling off slightly to around 58,000 jobs in 2023. Next slide. So as we break this down by the key segments, between 2014 and 2023, advertising, public relations, and related services was the largest segment, and it grew by more than 2,400 jobs from 2014 to 2023. Marketing consulting services nearly doubled in size, and so this is where we see the most substantial growth. Meanwhile, marketing research and traditional publishing segments have seen consistent declines, reflecting the broader industry shift towards digital platforms and automation. And even social media and content platforms saw a slight drop, which is likely due to market saturation and increased competition. Next slide. So on the wage front, the industry performs very well. The average annual wage across all segments was above 109,000, which far exceeds the county's average of about 78,600. And it, of course, exceeds the MIT living wage benchmark. And advertising and public relations roles are especially well compensated, where they average over 125,000 per year. Next slide. So as we look over the past decade at real wage growth, the rates have varied quite a bit by segment. Marketing research and public opinion polling saw a 23% real wage increase. So that's reflecting the premium placed on data and analytics. Digital media networks grew by nearly 20%. And then on the other hand, advertising and PR wages declined slightly, and traditional publishing fell by almost 7%. So underscoring the challenges in conventional media. Next slide. So looking ahead through 2028, total employment in the marketing and publishing industry is projected to grow slightly over the next 5 years. In 2023, the industry had just under 58,000 jobs, and we're expecting a small dip in 2024 numbers, with employment falling to about 57,500 before rebounding in 2025 to 57 or over 57,700. By 2028, we're forecasting a total of nearly 58,400 jobs. So that represents about a 0.7% growth over the next 5 years. And while this isn't rapid expansion, the overall trend indicates stabilization, and it's likely a reflection of how the industry is adapting to ongoing shifts in media consumption, technology, and business strategy. Next slide. So as we break down the wage growth by segment, social networks and other media networks and content providers are expected to lead with nearly 10% growth. This reflects continued expansion in digital content, streaming services, and online engagement. Marketing consulting services follows closely behind, projected to grow by 8%, driven by demand in digital marketing expertise and data-driven strategies. And then advertising, PR, and related services expected to grow modestly by almost 2%, which still reflects ongoing demand for brand building and digital outreach. Next slide. So now we'll shift to employer demand. And so job postings gives us a window into real-time employer demand. So from 2014 to 2024, we tracked more than 138,000 job postings. Demand peaked in 2021 with nearly 1,800 postings. Marketing consulting services had the highest share at over 40%, and advertising and PR followed at 34%. Demand in social media roles is growing, while traditional publishing and marketing research are declining. Next slide. All right, so looking at the annual postings by segment, we can see clear shifts in industry priorities. So marketing consulting services peaked at nearly 7,000 postings in 2016, but declined to around 2,700 by 2024. This is likely due to hiring efficiency or market saturation. Advertising and PR spiked in 2021 post-COVID with over 8,100 postings, but dropped sharply by 2024, reflecting tighter budget and media shifts. Traditional publishing held steady until 2022 and then dropped by more than half, showing a continued decline in print media. Marketing research had the lowest demand, falling from a 2019 peak. And this is possibly tied to automation and AI. And then social media and content providers stayed consistent for years. They did dip in 2023, but showed a small rebound in 2024. So overall, postings are down across most segments, reflecting the ongoing disruption from digital tools, automation, and evolving media habits. Next slide. So one of the biggest challenges in the industry is just the unpredictability of employer demand. Job postings in segments like marketing research swung from some years of growth of nearly 200% to other years of declines of around 65%. Advertising and publishing also saw major shifts, especially during digital transitions. And even the typically stable areas like marketing consulting experienced swings of more than growth of up to 56% in 2016 and down 32% in 2024. So altogether, the job postings have fluctuated industry-wide by nearly 40%, negative 40% and positive 40%. So this variability makes it difficult to align talent pipelines with the fast changing the needs of the industry. So, and that just really reinforces the need for a continued relationship or partnership between industry and education. Next slide. So from 2013 to 2024, 5 companies accounted for nearly a quarter of all job postings in the marketing and publishing industry. These included Advantage Solutions, which topped the list with over 11,000 postings in retail marketing and brand activation, especially in grocery and big box stores. Act One is a national staffing agency that posted over 9,500 jobs, focused on connecting creative and administrative talent with a broad range of employers. Crossmark contributed more than 4,500 postings, focused on in-store promotions and shopper engagement. The Creative Group, part of Robert Half, they specialized in digital and design roles, placing talent with both agencies and in-house teams. And then Market Source posted nearly 2,500 jobs, primarily in field marketing for the tech and automotive sectors. So these firms reflect the industry's broad talent pipeline from hands-on execution to strategic and creative roles. Next slide. So now as we look at their share of total job postings over this period, Advantage Solutions accounted for almost 9% of all postings. Act One accounted for 7%. Crossmark and the Creative Group came in at 3%, and Market Source was 2% of overall unique job postings. So altogether, these 5 companies accounted for 24% of all job postings in the marketing and publishing between 2013 and 2024. Next slide. So now when we break down the concentration of job postings by the industry segments, we can see there's a little bit more variability. Social networks and content providers is the most concentrated segment, where the top 5 companies accounted for 73% of all postings. So a handful of platforms dominate digital hiring. Marketing consulting services also shows a high concentration, where over 53% of the postings come from the top 5 companies. Publishing is somewhat concentrated at 33% of postings coming from the top 5. And marketing and research and public opinion polling is also moderately concentrated at around 29% of postings coming from the top 5 firms. Advertising and PR was more fragmented. Only 16% of postings came from the top 5 companies, reflecting a broader range of firms competing in that space. And this breakdown helps us just understand where opportunities are centralized and where the hiring landscape is more open and more competitive. Next slide. Okay, so now we'll turn to industry demographics. Looking at age distribution of workers in the marketing and publishing industry points to a younger to more early mid-career workforce compared to other industries in LA County. 57% of workers are between the ages of 25 and 44, which is 13 percentage points higher than the countywide average. And this concentration highlights how the industry leans into talent with some professional experience, especially in digital and creative roles. On the other end of the spectrum, only 6% of workers are under 25, which is well below the nearly 10% average across all industries. This suggests that there's fewer entry-level opportunities or early career roles than in other sectors in the county. Workers aged 45 to 64 make up about 31% of the industry, which again is lower than the broader workforce, but where there's an average of 38%. So there's fewer mid to late career professionals in the space. And finally, only 5.9% of workers are 65 or older, compared to 8.4% across all industries, meaning that the older workers are also underrepresented. So overall, these numbers reinforce that marketing and publishing is a space where young professionals dominate, and employers are likely to emphasizing adaptability, digital fluency, and emerging media skills. Next slide. So now looking at the educational attainment of workers, marketing and publishing offers real opportunities for middle skill workers, those with some college or an associate degree. About 26% of the industry workforce falls in this category, which is right in line with the county average. These individuals often fill key roles in content production, campaign coordination, digital media, and design. These are positions that require creativity, adaptability, and a technical know-how, but not necessarily a 4-year degree. At the same time, the industry does include a large share of bachelor's degree holders at 39%, which is well above the countywide average. And this reflects the demand for strategic and analytical skills in areas like branding, marketing strategy, and communications. And then on the flip side, workers with only a high school diploma or less make up less than 30% of the workforce, which is below the 38% across all industries. And altogether, the data shows us that post-secondary education is increasingly important, but there's still a clear and accessible pathway for community college graduates and career education students to thrive in this industry. Next slide. So looking at the race and ethnicity of workers, this industry does remain less racially diverse compared to all industries in Los Angeles County. White workers make up nearly 50% of the industry, which is well above the countywide average of 33%. The overrepresentation stands in contrast to the significantly lower shares of Hispanic and Black workers, who make up around 23% and 6% of the workforce, respectively, despite representing over 40% and nearly 8% of the countywide labor force. Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander workers are somewhat stronger presence at 18.5% compared to 16.1% at the countywide average. And other racial and ethnic groups account for around 3%, which is just slightly higher than the norm. So while we do see a modest boost in representation for some groups, the industry overall reflects a lack of equity and access and opportunity, particularly for Hispanic and Black professionals. And these gaps point to the need for more inclusive hiring, outreach, upskilling strategies to better reflect the region's diversity and unlock some of this untapped talent. Next slide. Okay, looking at the gender of the industry, this is one area where the industry shines, is gender equity. The split is 50-50, which is nearly identical to the overall labor force, but it is true 50-50. And this is suggesting that the roles and opportunities in this field are more equitably distributed across genders compared to many other industries in LA County. Next slide. So now just looking at the demographics at the segment level, the industry segments, we can start with gender and education. So the marketing and publishing workforce is highly educated, as we said. In segments like publishing and social media and content platforms, more than 42 to 44% of workers hold a bachelor's degree or higher, which is well above the countywide average, our all industry average of 26%. But at the same time, middle school workers do make up around 26% of the workforce in each segment. So that's right on par with the county average. And that shows that these jobs do remain accessible to those without a four-year degree, particularly in the roles of design, campaign support, and client engagement. Looking at gender, where overall the industry is balanced, but individual segments do tell a little bit of a different story. Marketing research is majority female, with over 60% of the workforce identifying as women. And at the other end, social networks and content platforms are male dominated, where nearly 57% of the workforce is male. So this may relate to the focus of these roles, or just specific outreach needed to try to close that gap a little bit. Next slide. So shifting to age and race ethnicity, we see further variation across the segments. The industry overall skews younger, especially in marketing research and social media, where the majority of the workforce is under 35 years old. In advertising, for example, over 34% of the workers are aged 25 to 34, pointing to strong demand for early career professionals in branding and creative roles. While traditional publishing roles has the oldest workforce, where over 8% are age 65 or older, just signaling that this segment has been a little slower to transition to the digital space. And in terms of race and ethnicity, white workers are overrepresented across nearly all segments, but particularly in advertising, where they make up more than 52% of the workforce. And Hispanic workers are underrepresented industry-wide. The highest share appears in marketing research at 37%, but that's still below the all industry average of 40%. And Asian American and Pacific Islander workers are most concentrated in social media and marketing consulting. where they make up around 20% of the workforce. And Black workers remain underrepresented across the board, peaking at just over 7% in social media. Next slide. Okay, so wrapping up with some of the key takeaways from our analysis. The industry added over 4,300 jobs between 2020 and 2022 and reached nearly 58,000 jobs in 2023. Growth is expected to continue, though modestly, by 2028. And marketing consulting services has been the strongest performer, while traditional publishing, excuse me, traditional publishing continues to decline. From 2014 to 2024, there's over 138,000 job postings, with marketing consulting accounting for 41% of those. Wages in the industry are strong, averaging over 109,000, which is well above the county average. And marketing research is seeing the highest wage growth. And the workforce is younger and more educated than average. 57% are between the ages of 25 and 44, and 39% hold a bachelor's degree or higher. And gender representation is balanced, but there's an ongoing racial equity gaps. So white workers are overrepresented, while Hispanic and Black workers are underrepresented across the industry. And finally, the top five companies made up nearly a quarter of all job postings. So that's showing a high degree of employer concentration in certain segments of the industry. And next slide. So thank you all for your time and attention. If you do have any questions, or if you want to explore the data further, feel free to reach out to me at matthew.skyberg@laedc.org, and I'd be happy to engage with you further. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Next up, to present the findings and data on the current programs offered at the LA19 community colleges, I'd like to introduce Luke Meyer, Director at the Center of Excellence, hosted at Mount San Antonio College.
Thank you, Pablo and Matt. Wow, thank you. I love the industry demographics that you laid out, and it sounds like marketing and publishing is quite white. Now, that is what is in the industry. And so what we're going to talk about are the students, or on the supply side from our community colleges, and maybe we have a solution here to make things more equitable as we go through. So Pablo, you're handling the slides, right? All right, go ahead. Let's do it. All right, so our community colleges have our core marketing and publishing programs across those 7 program areas: advertising, marketing, distribution, sales. You can see them there. Desktop publishing, which should probably be updated with mobile and laptop and other things, but that's what it's historically been called. E-commerce and small business and entrepreneurship. And then we have a lot of niche areas, such as those related to photography, to management of lodging and promotion, real estate, travel services, wine, viticulture, and other things like that. So across our 19 colleges in the LA Basin, there are about 50 marketing and publishing programs currently offered by our colleges that focus directly on this. And then, as you can see, there are a lot of niche program areas. And then if you zoom out a little wider, we have a ton of business and entrepreneurship programs across all 19 of the colleges. So we're going to talk specifically about the ones related to marketing and publishing now. Go ahead, Pablo. All right, so one of the things that we do at the Center of Excellence is compile data on the number of awards issued from certain programs. So we track that data from Datamart over, every year. We calculate a 3-year average. And so when looking at the most related top codes, which are the taxonomy of program codes or program areas, we see that small business and entrepreneurship issues the largest share of awards, followed by marketing and distribution. And then you can see on down the line the advertising, sales, and then as we get down into the more niche areas, desktop publishing was was once a very, very, very large program, but again, maybe I'll advocate for a new name for that one so that people are still interested in it because it's still very relevant. But throughout the whole region, about 600 awards are issued on average in this very focused area. And again, that is not including all of the business and other related awards. Next. Now let's talk about our students. So again, we're taking a really, really focused view of those in marketing and distribution students. So you can see starting off at just under 6,000 students back in 2014-15, the numbers kind of dipped and then rose up right before COVID. Then COVID hit and dropped down, and now we're climbing back up. And so we'll see what happens with the next year of data, but I would anticipate an upward trend, probably surpassing the previous years. But we'll see what happens with the data. The students have rebounded, and there's a lot of interest in this area. So you can see closing out, we're looking at over 5,500 students, and that's what we're going to look at on the next slide. Go ahead, Pablo. This is where the students are taking these courses by college. So you can see Cerritos and Santa Monica each have over 1,000 students enrolled in marketing and publishing programs. And then you can see how that plays out on down the line. My host college, Mount San Antonio College, is there in fourth with just about 500 students. And again, this does not take into account all the related business programs, but this is specifically for marketing and publishing. And you can see that LA Southwest and Compton don't have enrollments in those specific pathways, but do in broader business offerings. Next slide. All right, now this is what I wanted to, when I was looking at the demographics that you were presenting, Matt, our students in this pathway are predominantly more than half are female. Almost half of our students identify as Hispanic, and that, it was almost 50% white in marketing. We have 28% of our students that identify as white. So Black and African American students are more well represented in our programs than they are in the labor market currently. And so I would say that our future is pretty bright in this space with the talent that we have at our community colleges. And when you look at it, 40% are 24 or younger, but this program area seems to be, attract students across all walks of life and at different ages, because we still have 10% of the students, so 10 out of every 100 are 50 and older. So people are coming to this at different points in life, but predominantly students are interested in this area right out of high school. Next slide. So the next 4 slides, we're looking at employment outcomes, how our students do after completing a program. And so we have the data in blue related to marketing and distribution, and then we have the average across all programs. So if you look at where the trend was back in 14-15, students in marketing and distribution were killing it. The 77% of them had a job closely related to their field of study. Compared favorably to the average across all programs. But then as you go across the spectrum and you see that has kind of shifted, it's dropped 6% to 71% in the year that the data is most recently available. So students, after a year of completing a program, get a survey. They're asked, is your job related to your field of study? Yes or no, and then that takes time to publish. That's why you see the 2021, 2022 is the most recent data available, but it just now lags a little bit behind the average across all programs, which include, everything from health to IT technicians to automotive service technicians. So basically, just above 7 out of 10 students report that they are working in their field of study, which is great, but could be, higher to get up to 8 or 9 out of 10. Next. Median change in earnings. So this compares what students were making before starting their program with what they're making after. And again, if we look at that sort of legacy year, I guess back in 16, 15, 16, excuse me, students were increasing their earnings by 31%, and that compared favorably to the average across all. And these have kind of zigzagged a little bit up and down, and this depends on what job students are getting. So in the most recent year that data is available, students are increasing their earnings closer to almost 30%, and marketing and distribution programs are just 1% behind that of the average across all programs. Next slide. And here's the median annual earnings. So how much are students actually making upon leaving? And this is where marketing and distribution students really shine, which is what matters to them and their families to support them. So in the most recent year that data is available, students report earning almost $47,000 annually, which is just above the living wage standard for a single adult with no children in LA County. And that's about more than $3,000 than the average across all programs. Next slide. And the portion that attained a living wage. Clearly, we would love this to be 100% always, but unfortunately, only less than half of our students report earning a living wage upon completing their program. So in the most recent year that data is available, marketing and distribution programs, 46%. So 46 out of every 100 students report earning a wage that is above the living wage threshold for the county. So we have some work to do here, but this compares favorably to the average across all programs. Next slide. And some of these I'll get through pretty quick so that we can get into the discussion. Now, we looked at some target occupations. These are the middle skill occupations, and you can see advertising sales agents, the pre-press technicians and workers, and desktop publishers. You can see what is required. So these are jobs that our students could get right out of community college. You see they are all projected to decline slightly over the next 5 years, yet there are still over 500 job openings annually in the county between these, with desktop publishers kind of being a slower one. Again, this was a much more prominent occupation in the past, but not as much. And you can see the wages. We highlighted them in red if they were below, I think it's $24.03 per hour for a single adult with no children in LA County. That's what the self-sufficiency standard currently is. So these are the target occupations, and then in a little bit, I'll show you some sort of pathway occupations that our students can build to with more education or experience. Next. So we also looked at job postings, but unlike Matt that looked kind of historically and did it by industry, we just looked at 1 year of job postings for those 3 occupations. And you can see advertising sales agents make up the lion's share of the almost 1,900 job postings from the last year. Next. And the job titles, and employers that are looking. So it looks in the last year, marketing coordinators came out on the top, digital marketing, product marketing. You see brand coming up a couple times with brand marketing, brand representatives, and then everyone's favorite word associated with TikTok and YouTube, influencer marketing managers. That's great news, as all of our children probably dream of being an influencer someday. But yeah, we saw that come across in job postings, and you can see the companies that are posted the most for those 3 roles there. Next. And then the advertised wage and the postings by city. So you can see with those 3 occupations, the advertised wages do meet that living wage threshold, and they are just right around the 60,000, high 50s, low 60s generally. And the majority of the postings are in LA, unsurprisingly. Next one, I think this is the pathway occupations. Yeah. So these all require a baccalaureate degree. So if students want to keep progressing along their career arc, they can further their education or get more experience and potentially be qualified for one of these positions. And I would love to hear from the employers on the call too, to see how many of these marketing managers or other PR managers and what their education levels are and what they're sort of looking for but the typical across the nation is a baccalaureate degree. And you can see the number of job openings for all of these is quite large, especially the research analysts and marketing specialists, the marketing managers, and when you get into the wages, all of those are sufficiently above the living wage standards. So it promises to provide a solid career path for our students to support themselves and their families as they progress, either in their education or with more work experience. So that's a little bit on the supply side. Matt shared a little bit on the demand side, so that kind of sets the stage for everything. I'll turn it back over to Pablo, I guess, and then we can start our discussion. You can go to the next slide too. My contact information is up there. If anybody has questions, you can reach out to me directly, or we can chat right now too. So
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah, thank
Excellent.
you.
So we will be moving now into our roundtable discussion panel with our invited industry experts. I'll go ahead and introduce everyone. And then as we are introduced, we'll highlight you on the Zoom call, and then we'll get started. Feel free to use the chat box to add any questions as we get through this. There will be a Q&A following our structured panel so that we can go ahead and field those questions as well. Today's panel will be moderated by our Director of Workforce Development here at LADC, Jose Pelayo, and also co-moderated by Alicia Nguyen, our Program Manager of Workforce Development here at LAEDC as well. So it is my pleasure now to introduce Dana Kaufman. Dana Kaufman is an accomplished social impact strategist and cultural marketer with over a decade of experience leading campaigns at the intersection of media, advocacy, and creative storytelling. As Vice President of Social Impact Marketing at Task Force, Dana has spearheaded transformative initiatives for clients including YouTube, MTV, and the California Civil Rights Department. So thank you very much, Dana, for being with us today. Unfortunately, our representative Aaron Vactor from PMC was unfortunately not able to make it with us today, but we will follow up with him at a later follow-up meeting. Next up, it's my pleasure to introduce Josh Shimels. Josh Shimels has 26 years of B2B media experience and is the publisher and CEO of the Los Angeles Business Journal and Inside the Valley magazine. Having previously served as an executive with the LABJ, he returned to the company in April of 2020. Shimels was associate publisher and vice president of the Business Journal from 2010 to 2015. He began his career in 1999 with a 5-year term at the Business Journal's sister publication, the San Fernando Valley Business Journal. Welcome in, Josh Shimels. It's my pleasure to introduce Victoria Torri-Feeney as an accomplished professional in the diverse background of talent acquisition and recruiting at BAMCO with a degree in communications from SUNY Albany. Tori has developed a strong foundation in HR and building people and culture. Currently, Tori serves as the talent acquisition manager, where she's responsible for hiring interns and executives. And lastly, we are pleased to introduce Jaylene Castro. Jaylene Castro is a strategic and versatile professional with experience in merchandising, logistics, and client relations. She holds a master's in communications from the USC and is equipped with a deep understanding for consumer needs and market dynamics. I'll go ahead and pass it over to the panel.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Pablo. Just kind of want to begin by kind of giving an overview and thanking Matthew and Luke for the great demand and supply data. For me, there were some few things that stood out, both positive and negative, as is expected on each industry. But for me, I think one of the positive sides is the average wage is $109,000 per year, which is way above livable wage in LA County, right? We also see we expect growth, roughly 58,000 jobs are opening, but there is some need for diversity as well. We see that 50% of the industry is dominated by Caucasian individuals. So on the supply side, we see the opposite, right? We see that we have a high demand in Hispanic and African Americans interested in the industry in itself. So a lot of conversation related to those topics. I think it's gonna open up, some solutions, as Luke mentioned, but very excited to be here. I want to thank everyone for their time. I think we'll have great conversation. And just kind of wanted to open up the floor by giving everyone a chance to introduce themselves and the organization that we represent. So if we can go across the floor, I'll start with the ladies at Banco first, whoever wants to go first.
I'll go. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Tori Victoria. You can kind of call me whatever, totally fine. I do all of the talent acquisition for BAMCO itself in the US and Canada. BAMCO is a global promotional products distributor. So we work across the board with all different types of industries, all different types of clients to create their branded goods. So yeah, I do all of the recruiting for the business in a domestic sense.
Thank you, Tori. Jaylene, if you want to add anything on your component of what your day-to-day activities are and anything on your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jaylene. Thank you for having me. I am a senior e-commerce site merchandiser here at BAMCO. So as Tori mentioned, BAMCO focuses on branded products. So that not only means that we get the fun hoodies, anything that you see in a campus store, anything you see on an influencer, but it also means that we're able to service industries who need uniforms, et cetera, et cetera. What I do is focus specifically on new and existing clients on building their e-commerce platforms so their workers or their network are able to access these goods. And so that's between merchandising, logistics, supply chain. It's very exciting. It's a very underrepresented part of the marketing industry. So I'm happy to be able to hear and give some more light on that.
Thank you so much. Excited to hear your perspective. Dana, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Hello, everybody. Dana Kaufman, VP of Marketing at Task Force. We are a small creative strategy agency based here in LA and focused on supporting corporations, nonprofits, and government agencies with marketing and outreach campaigns. We do a lot of work with LA County, as well as big tech companies and media brands like Viacom and YouTube. So pretty broad swath of things, and excited to, be able to share a little more about the agency side with y'all.
Thank you so much, Dana. And Josh?
Good morning, everyone. So nice to meet you. As publisher at the Business Journal, I oversee all operations on both sides of the fence, so to speak, editorial, advertising. I like to describe us as much more than a weekly publication. We truly are a multimedia company at this point, and that's a trend in our industry. We publish weekly business journals. We launched a new magazine last year called Inside the Valley, which is our B2B magazine in a very different format, different type of content, servicing the greater San Fernando Valley region. We host about 25 events a year, which range from awards recognition programs, excuse me, to panel discussions on really important topics, from everything such as wildfire impact, insurance industry impact, cybersecurity, and economic trends. And we're fully digital, all digital capabilities, and launched a podcast about 5 months ago as well that focuses on the C-suite and deeper interviews. So it's an extension of the brand.
Thank you so much. Exciting. You guys are all doing different things, different components. I think we're going to get a great perspective of the industry overall. But again, I just kind of want to reiterate what Pablo said. If there is any questions, please put them in the chat. Towards the end, we'll allow 15 minutes of Q&A so we can unmute as well. So with that being said, we can probably get started on some of the questions here. And I want to start off with Josh. I know you mentioned a lot of kind of new innovative things that's happening at the Los Angeles Business Journal, and kind of wanted to hear your thoughts with 26 years of experience and some of the trends and challenges that you're currently experiencing that educational institutes should be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are both trends and exciting trends and challenges right now for our industry. Our industry is constantly evolving and changing. The digital impact of our industry has been tremendous. That's not going away. That's not changing. I think how we adapt to it, how our industry chooses to adapt, for us, it's all about finding new ways to produce content, new ways to reach the business community, those looking for content. In all ways that readers want to consume information, content, and media, we need to make sure that we're providing that. from an education standpoint, I have constant conversations with business schools, journalism schools, communications and marketing programs. And I think for us, we're seeing a lot of really great, talented students coming out of the marketing side with a lot of skill set in the digital area that can really help our industry. On the other hand, on the journalism side, because there's been such a focus, a shift away from print journalism, which is a little bit longer form journalism. It's more analytic, it's deeper, it's longer form stories. We're seeing that trend change a little bit on the digital space. There isn't the attention span of the reader online. So stories are shorter. You're seeing snippets, you're seeing little information. So a lot of the students coming out of the journalism programs aren't quite as skilled as our reporting staff requires for the type of journalism that we produce. So it's a balance, and we're constantly working with the journalism schools. We're working with the community colleges at ways that we can just learn and understand what's needed for our particular industry. And I think it's an important conversation that we have to have. We have to just open up the dialogue.
Oh, great points. Dana, anything you want to add to that on your perspective?
Yeah, I think certainly a evolving time. I think there's certainly a need to like have people coming into the industry ready to like learn, jump in, and evolve with it. So I think that would be my like steer towards education is in ingraining that flexibility. I don't think like we obviously AI is evolving very quickly, both on the creative, on the marketing, kind of across the board. I think some of the news coming out about that is a little like ahead of where we're actually seeing things in the industry. But I think, being able to adjust and understand that like what we what we took as rote, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 10 years ago for sure is not going to be the same moving forward. And so I think that like flexibility, eager to continue learning beyond your degree, is something that I would just like really want to underscore as we kind of move into the next phase of how all this is impacting digital for sure, as well as the broader landscape.
Thank you, Dana. I know Jaylene and Tori, you probably have different perspectives, so whoever wants to kind of go in, jump in, and kind of speak on your side of the house.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think that it's important to both note the 10 years ago, the 2 years ago, the 1 years ago, so that way students have a holistic understanding of the history of journalism, the history of storytelling, and how we have developed some of these marketing and advertising policies and practices. Equally so, I think it's important that we also acknowledge the current trends and market trends that are happening in marketing and publishing. So that way, while they have that historic understanding, they can bring those skills in to give a more progressive and developed understanding of marketing and publishing. So similar to what Dana says on being able to learn and constantly evolve, I think it's important for students to be able to understand both so they can have a very dynamic skill set going into a very dynamic industry.
Thank you, Jaylene. Great points. Tori, anything you want to add on the hiring side? Anything that you see from different departments that are requiring any trends that we should be made aware of?
Yeah. It's so interesting. I'm obviously in intern phases right now. My whole calendar has been full of interns. And so I've actually had some fairly relevant conversations literally this week. And I think that one of the biggest things that we've talked about changing trends and evolving trends, but I think a trend that remains consistent throughout, no matter what, is that level of curiosity that Dana was just mentioning. I think putting an emphasis on that could be really important moving forward, just like understanding that sometimes a lot of employers will just value that curiosity out of a student, even if it's something that maybe they don't have the exact skill or haven't learned exactly what they're supposed to know just yet in school, but come to the table to an employer and say, this is something I'm really interested in learning about and gaining that real life experience. I would say that yes, evolving trends for sure are important, and understanding certain skill sets of different platforms, so on and so forth, are going to be important no matter what. But a consistent trend would definitely just be like understanding, like being curious and wanting to be a sponge, and putting an emphasis on that, I think puts people aside for sure.
No, thank you. I think overall it's interesting to hear, your guys' same industry, different perspective, and kind of hearing that same component of being a lifelong learner throughout the journey of your career path. I think that's interesting and important in various ways. And I also like Jaylene's comment of, understanding the history that could be applied in different ways as trends approach. And of course, everyone here kind of stated technology is here, it's here to stay, it's innovative and it's rapid. So I think that's a topic we'll touch base more on one specific question involving how that's affected everyone's industry. But again, thank you. I want to segue into another topic, a very important topic, which is workforce development. We saw some, challenges there as well as some opportunities to solve these challenges. So kind of want to keep it at BAMCO with the BAMCO ladies and kind of hear on your side what skills and qualifications are most in demand within your specific realm.
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing, especially at an entry level, is going to be just understanding like basic platforms as far as skills go. One of the things I'm hiring on the marketing side right now, and WordPress is a huge like buzzword that comes up a bunch. In addition to that, like, just understanding basic things when it comes to marketing, but also, qualifications wise, again, I kind of go back to the person. It's really important to show the soft skills, in my opinion. And I would say that that's also very important for us as a business, too. We move very fast. We're a very fast paced organization. We also actually work in a fairly lean team. And so, with that being said, I think that the ability to multitask, the ability to stay organized, I know is not necessarily relevant directly to a marketing and publishing like directly, but at the end of the day, those soft skills are also going to be super important, especially for students coming right out of college looking for full-time roles. I believe would set them aside as kind of just understanding those soft skills too.
Those are great points, Tori. And I think across any industry and advisor we've had, soft skills remains the top, conversation. So it's interesting to hear though the components of multitasking and understanding some of the platforms that you mentioned, WordPress. Sort of things that we want to hear is like what platforms are being used, what specific information should they be aware of. So thank you for that. I want to segue to Jaylene because I know she does a different component of it, and she might have some different opinions on her end.
Yeah, thank you. I think that in the marketing sector, e-commerce is quickly growing with every big celebrity, influencer, business having some sort of merch opportunity and being able to purchase that merch online. So, with that being said, I do think it's important for people to learn some of these platforms that Tori was mentioning. Some that I look for specifically is Shopify, Etsy. Even if you sold bracelets on your Etsy shop when you were in eighth grade, that's still a huge tool that you're able to bring because you've been in the space. Tori and I were talking about accounting recently, how you learn how to do a ledger by hand, but I think it's really important if someone can come in with a little bit of QuickBooks knowledge. So as you're developing the curriculum, I think it's also important to understand the platforms that are used in these positions they're searching for and be able to give them something tangible to show those skills, whether it's a certification that they develop, some sort of small project that they now have a link to. Those are definitely hard skills that set candidates apart.
No, that's great feedback. I think capstone projects are amazing and a way of kind of hands-on learning. And I think, you mentioned a few of the components that to your earlier point, learn the history, but also become, to Dana's point, a lifelong learner of like, it's changing. E-commerce is different. Everything's just digital online. So those are great points. Dana, on your side, any specific skills or qualifications that are most in demand that you're seeing within your sector?
Yeah, I think the ability to navigate like the backend platforms that are supporting all of the marketing strategies being implemented. So whether that's a MailChimp, a HubSpot, of course, digital advertising across social media companies, working with platforms like BAMCO, like being able to navigate all those spaces and actually implement the marketing strategies, I think is super critical, especially for new entrants into the industry. A lot of senior leaders at agencies probably don't know how MailChimp is set up and all that works. And so they want to hire someone who can just take that on and they can provide their feedback. But like the actual technical knowledge of the platforms that are responsible for the majority of digital marketing is definitely a super critical skill. And then I think this will probably come up later in our conversation too, and we all joke about it, but like LA really is the epicenter of the creator economy and creator marketing. And so like it is really important to be able to like navigate and think strategically about influencer marketing, how that relates to merch, how that relates to your social efforts. And so I think it's a huge opportunity writ large in the industry, but specifically in LA, where the majority of creators and a lot of these kind of pop-up brands that are creator-led are focused, is both for sure, I think, exciting for younger folks and students, as well as a huge opportunity. And again, kind of looping back to what I just said, like legacy folks are not as experienced in that. And so it is a really a niche for younger professionals coming into the industry.
No, those are great points. And just to add to your thoughts, I mean, I think everyone here is aware of the opportunities here in LA County. I think 94% of businesses here are small businesses, entrepreneurship. We're the mecca of innovation. So to your point, I think it's important to incorporate those and see it in a different perspective to kind of segue all around the 360 level and experience of the industry in itself. So appreciate those comments. And then lastly, Josh, I kind of want to hear your perspective because it's a little different from the other speakers on any skills or qualification that are most demand currently within your realm.
Yeah, we're interesting because as a B2B media company, our skill set of our teams are very different. I've got advertising and marketing, I've got editorial and research, I've got accounting and finance, graphic design and production, audience development. One of the things that I'd like to see more from a lot of graduates from you name the degree program. I would love to see a basic fundamental understanding of business from people coming out of colleges, whether it's community colleges or four-year degrees. If you have a literature degree, having a minor in business would serve you well throughout your career. If you're a production designer, having an understanding of business and audience development and advertiser, to understand how businesses function, how they work, even at a really high, broad level, I think would benefit most industry professionals coming out because they can contribute in a different way if they understand how businesses work, how they make money, what financials means, how to understand expenses, whether it's your department or your company. I think that that's a skill set that a lot of students coming out of any degree program could value. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have 4 years on it or a degree, but a minor or just an emphasis or just a basic fundamental understanding of business as you enter your career path, I think would be really beneficial.
Oh, that's a great point, Josh. I think it relates specifically in this industry, right? Is having an understanding of business. And then I think overall, some of great points, those soft skills are important as well, specifically the platforms that are being used and just kind of having that digital skills and again, continue to being a lifelong learner, I think are essential. For the next question, I like to go to Victoria at BAMCO because, BAMCO, I think, if I'm read correctly, because of your innovative approach, has to Committed to Excellence, has won multiple awards in the next in a lot of years regarding your workforce. So just kind of want to hear how you are, having opportunities for professional development, or if there's any opportunities for professional development for your current workforce and how you're doing that. I know a lot of the time different industries struggle with that, but the importance of making sure that you continue to grow your workforce within and give them the opportunity. So kind of want to hear your thoughts, Victoria, if you have any specific things that you've done that you want to share, or if there's any opportunities.
Yeah. So I think I've had the opportunity to work at some larger businesses as well within the fashion space. And there's always kind of been like more formal teams that have done this. One of the things that I find really special with BAMCO is the ability to kind of be entrepreneurial in this sense. We're not a business that really tells you no. Like if we hire with confidence that the people we're bringing in are going to be value adds across the board. And so if someone comes to us and says like, oh, I'm really interested in learning X, Y, and Z, we make it happen. I'll use the example actually. The team that Jaylene is actually on was created because the manager of the team started with us as an intern and really just gravitated towards the e-commerce space in general. And so she became really at the forefront of that project, where eventually we got to a point that we said, okay, it's time to build Nicole a team. And that really just happened for the simple reason that Nicole drew a liking to the e-commerce space, understood the trend being important for the business. And now it's one of the most important parts of our sales process, is that we have been really at the forefront of technology in our industry because we built our own e-commerce platform that now our team utilizes as a sales component. So when it comes to the development of things, I think it with our space, it's very entrepreneurial. It's something that you have to kind of bring to the table that we're like, let's do it, no problem. But that being said, and more of a formal sense on the HR side, we do have clubs like Women in Business that our groups really do thrive under a mentorship program. That's been really great. And so, we do a handful of different things, but I think a lot of it stems from our people, and really just wanting to learn more and then going after it from there as well.
Thank you, Tori. I kind of want to stay with that and just kind of dive deeper. So, like, when you do identify opportunities for professional development, is there a solution? Do you work within your colleges? Do you have a specific provider, or how do you go about so we can kind of get a better understanding of how the, industry is kind of focusing on, their incumbent workers?
Yeah, so I'm honestly going to speak candidly that at this time we really don't. I do think it's an opportunity that actually my boss and I have really been focusing on recently, and saying that like learning and development is something that we can really focus on. So I think that this panel honestly is a really good start just for myself in general to kind of take the initiative to build out something like that. But at this time, we don't necessarily partner with any sort of universities, which I do think is something that definitely in the future is a goal for us.
No, thank you for that. I think, the point of these advisories is to benefit both ends, industry and community colleges. Because most of the time industry doesn't know that, the community colleges can be the solution to a lot of some of your obstacles. So I think, that's a great, and I appreciate your honesty and, the congratulations on, being awarded the best place to work for multiple years. It sounds like you're doing some amazing things there. I don't know, Jaylene, if anything relates on your end on the side that you see as a senior e-commerce, any opportunities for professional development in your specific department?
Yeah, thank you. In terms of professional development, so like Tori said, we are very much entrepreneurial in where we can advocate for ourselves in what we need. So there have been times where I've just requested permission to be able to go to some of these conferences, some tours with some of our partners, to be able to learn further and have more opportunity to not only network, but to just learn more about the industry as a whole. So always a lifelong learner. In terms of professional networks, collaborations, partnerships, while informal, I do want to call out that something that is very valuable at BAMCO is that, as Tori said, we're very intentional with our hiring, we're very intentional with our staff, and there's a lot of trust that comes within that. So we have a very motivational and incentivized referral program, so that when we have folks like myself, I am a product of LA Community College, where, when I see other folks interested here, I'm open to mentoring them. I'm open to helping them get what they need in order to be able to break into this industry. And I'm open to referring. So being able to have that set up at BAMCO is a way for us individually to take that on and be able to create some of these opportunities.
Yeah, I just like to point out that Jaylene just helped me hire our most recent senior director of sales. So thank you to
Who
Jaylene.
is also a product of community college.
There you go.
So yeah, absolutely. Just being able to find opportunity and ways to bring the community that you come from with you is a great way to begin to diversify the workforce that we offer.
No, thank you. Great points, ladies. I kind of want to give a shout out to Jaylene for being a byproduct of our community college district. For those of you that don't know, the community college district has over 500,000 students, a lot of them from disinvested communities. So it's great to see a success like yourself in your position and be able to speak and give back to the community colleges. I think it gives a unique perspective. So thank you for that. Want to open up to Dana and Josh. I know Josh, you kind of already touched base a little bit about it, like the business component, but any other skills, or opportunities that you feel you can work on your current workforce to continue to move them up the ladder?
Yeah, we're a small company. At the end of the day, we're not a national media organization, which for me is a positive. It gives us a lot of flexibility. We're nimble. We are entrepreneurial in spirit as well. And great example. Just yesterday, I met with an employee, team member of ours, who's coming up on 5 years of service at the company, and they've already had 2 different roles in the company. And the question was, what's next? What is my next chapter at the Business Journal look like? What are my skill sets? Where is it taking me? What are my opportunities? And, you know, the lengthier conversation I had was, let's sit down and figure this out together. This may not be a lifelong career for you at the Business Journal, meaning there may be an opportunity that's stronger for you to go outside of the business. Not like I'm looking to have our team members leave, but I also respect and understand part of our job as managers, as leaders, is to develop skill sets that's going to help people grow their careers. If there are new opportunities that we can't provide them with, I will support them looking for others and provide career guidance. Now, that said, I obviously try to find new homes, new career paths, new opportunities internally. And I encourage all of our department managers to constantly be mentoring both formally and informally with their team members. If you're not developing your skill set, their skill sets, if they're not looking for advancement, we're probably not doing our job as leaders. That's something that is really important to us. And I kind of refer to us sometime as a boomerang company, because we do have people, myself included. This is my third time at the Business Journal for a total of 16 years over the last 26 years. I have left the market. I've moved to Dallas. I've moved to Phoenix and worked at other media companies, and I've always come back because I respect the product. We have other people, whether it's reporting staff or our director of advertising, who've left and they've come back. They've learned other skill sets. They've come back in new advanced positions, and they can add their experiences outside of our company into it, which helps them grow, which helps our team. So for me, I do think that it's a big part of managers and leaders to work with their team members to understand what each person is trying to get out of their career and try to find ways to help their paths as well. And sometimes it's outside.
No, thank you so much for that kind of different perspective. And, I'm glad we have you back here at the LA Business Journal. I think it speaks volume of the organization. So appreciate that, having the ability to, if you're not able to offer those opportunities, allow your, as a leader, to you have your staff continue to grow. So I think that that's interesting and a great way of kind of putting things into perspective. Dana, any components on the question of any opportunities for professional development or ongoing education? I know your company as well is very not as large as these other companies, but kind of want to hear your perspective of any kind of opportunities there.
Yeah, we are also very small, so not to echo Josh too much, but I think we're in a similar position. We do a lot of we do full service, full suite marketing, so there's definitely opportunities for people to learn on the job or jump in. And like I said, if you have kind of this basic of curiosity and like understand how marketing platforms or technical aspects work, like it's an opportunity for people to learn a new platform or jump in on something as we're testing, work with the right vendor. But in terms of like super formal or like you're gonna get a new degree along the way is not necessarily, I think, our path, or I think, honestly, really the path in the agency side of the industry as well. I think it is most people are coming in with the skill set they have for the role they're hired and or evolving within and through the work, speaking specifically on the agency side.
That's interesting perspective on all levels, right? I think one of the biggest opportunities here is to help develop some, opportunities for growth, whether it be with the community colleges and figure out kind of start a foundation, because it's important in today's world with the age of retirements and fewer individuals entering the workforce. How do we retain the great talent that we have now? So I think that your perspective and your honesty, I think it gives the community colleges kind of different view of the landscape and how things are going on within that industry specifically. I do want to segue and give the opportunity to our program manager to take over monitoring the conversation. So I will still be here. I will still be monitoring the chat and I'll jump back in, but I want to segue to Alicia to kind of take over some of the following questions that are going to have some great feedback from everyone. So Alicia, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks so much, Jose. I think from this panel, we heard a lot of different opportunities and also challenges that we've seen in the workforce. And I know we touched a little bit about it, but I kind of wanted to talk about technology. So within technology, how do you see that? How will technology, specifically automation and AI, affect your workforce and employee skill requirements within marketing and publishing? I kind of wanted to start with Josh.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That's a double-edged sword for our industry. On the one hand, in marketing, on the advertising side, on audience development side, we are heavily invested in technology. Our teams are very skilled in social media. They understand algorithms, they understand, and they're constantly taking training sessions in our industry on how to drive traffic to the site, how to drive traffic through social media. So that's been fantastic. On the other side of the fence, and actually, even staying with that, they're using AI. They're using different paths to get access different information and new idea sets. On the other side of the fence, we've got content. We've got editorial, which is in our company practically forbidden to use any type of AI in any of the research or any of the writing they do. Bottom line is they don't know when you're using AI, you don't know where the sources are coming from. And when we produce content, when we produce stories, when we produce news, we have to understand every source, every bit of information. It has to be citable, it has to be defendable. So it's very tough because on the one hand, AI is being embraced all around us, and even within some segments of our company, and then other departments, you're not allowed to use it because it's dangerous and you don't know where it's coming from. And it also kind of changes our personal interaction with our sources in the community. So it's both sides, and I think our industry is going to continue to try to wade through how does the media use AI in a safe and efficient way to potentially embrace it more in the future, but with caution.
No, that's a great point. And I think that's what we keep hearing is, how do we embrace it and also understand it because it's not going anywhere, but at the same time, how do we also mitigate safe uses of it so that we're able to be conscious of what's going on as well. Dana, do you have any points to that as well?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, it's again, I think our industry, maybe more than even a lot of others, is going to be like massively shifting in the next couple of years as like AI usage ramps up. I do think, um, if you're in advertising and you're completely not using AI, you're probably going to fall behind pretty quickly from a thought starting point of view, I mean, now with the new image generation, like ChatGPT can now do like text on digital ads to spec in your brand. So like, I think, I think for the purpose of this conversation, and I know education is reeling from AI, so no, don't want to like undercut that, but I think the soft skill, if you will, of helping students understand like the limitations of AI, like this point around sources and like how do you verify information it's telling you, is all the skills that are going to be super important in the workplace and that like parallel, I'm sure, what's happening in education itself. And I think that like fully shying away from AI and like its impact both on text generation and large language models um, at large, and then certainly like the more specific advertising applicable image and software development tools would be a mistake. So I think from a pathway perspective, even just like those soft skills about like how these tools shape up what to check, what not to check, wherein it's a thought partner versus a resource versus not the right tool at all, is things that'll be really important as people move into this industry, particularly as we see these tools like replacing some of the more entry level roles that people maybe used to fill. So yeah, I think it's a huge change. And again, some of the things we're reading are probably overblown about its current impacts, but even in those industry numbers that Luke was sharing, like I think the reason research is the largest decrease um, is likely due to this. And so I think it would be, yeah, mistaken to ignore it.
No, that's a great point to and hear your perspective on that, specifically using it as a tool, how to understand it. And I know we can go back to this a little bit later, but I wanted to also get your point of view from BAMCO.
Sure. It's actually interesting, kind of going off of Dana and Josh's points. I actually see it in a bit of a different perspective here. And the only reason I say that is it actually is probably used more for efficiency in our business. I would say that that's probably the biggest component, because we're not necessarily doing as much research or potentially an extensive part of advertising here. We really use AI, or the intent of AI use in the future, at least from our president's perspective, is much more focused on efficiency. So I do know that one of the things we're working on at this very moment is an AI platform, or the way to use AI to generate business proposals or RFP presentations or things along those lines. So more in a sales capacity where it can assist with our team. But I did see Jose's comment in the chat. And what's interesting is that I don't believe it's going to reduce workforce tremendously, but I do think that it would probably eliminate as much of a hiring push as we may need as our business continues to grow. So I think in the past years, we would hire as we won more business, or we would need larger teams, but we may be able to continue with the workforce that we have in a more efficient way if we have these tools to assist us.
Great, thank you, Tori. Do you have any points, Jaylene, for that specifically, whether that's in what you can see within the impacts of AI or just the workforce within itself, like how it would disrupt it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of two parts to this. So I'm deeply in agreement with Dana on using AI as a tool, a thought resource. Equally so with AI, it is so new and so innovative that I still think it's important for people, students specifically, to still take a big focus on media literacy, because AI can only be a tool if you know what result you're looking for. I'll take an example with multitasking. We have so many clients and so many projects happening all at the same time. Sometimes to be more efficient, I do need help to clean up my email a little bit and get my thoughts in order, but I need to know what end result I'm looking for to also make sure it doesn't sound like I just had a computer talk to you, because that ruins some of the human connection that is a big portion of your job. With that being said, on an operations standpoint, I still want to echo some of that point that I think it's important for the history and the foundation of these skills to be understood, because we are in a big transition period here. So some of these entry level workers that we have joining us are working with a lot of these legacy and senior level folks who don't use AI at all and might even be vehemently against it and not have major adoption here. So when we have someone who can sort of be a liaison and speak both languages and have empathy for both languages, it helps to create a more streamlined work process and culture as a whole. So I think there still needs to be a balance between knowing your media literacy, being able to utilize these platforms, but also being able to understand where these platforms came from and what they're being used for, what the intention really is.
No, that's a great point, and I think that's really important to understand that as a tool and a means to use it and also teach it for the workforce so that they're able to better understand what's happening within that. I kind of wanted to also pivot into a lot of what we've been saying is like the equitable talent pipeline. So how do we create that and build it? So I kind of wanted to ask and start with maybe Tori, what partnerships or collaborations have been the most effective within building that equitable talent pipeline within marketing and publishing? I know that you mentioned about getting somebody from Jaylene's team and how they were an intern. So is there any other avenues that you can see your collaborations or partnerships within that?
Yeah, I think that our industry is so niche, right? So yes, we are within the marketing and advertising industry, but then we get even more granular in the sense that we are specifically within the promotional product space. And so what's really great, I will say, about our industry in specific is that it's very interconnected. A lot of what we do, there are different types of groups and mentorship programs within the promotional product space that you can actually be a part of. And we have a lot of members within our business. And so I think that that would probably be the closest to what our partnerships would be as far as building a talent pipeline, specifically for the fact that a lot of the roles that are not entry level for us, we actually do require industry experience for, which is kind of an interesting tidbit there. So the only roles that we would really take on someone who has not experienced the promotional product space is that coordinator level for the most part, where they can kind of get their feet wet in what we do. But, you know, working within our promotional product space industry, I would say that there's a lot of connections that we've made. There's something called the promo kitchen, which is like so funny. We have such a like lighthearted, fun industry where people just utilize a whole bunch of different networking spaces to just connect with different talent. So I would say the way I've built a pipeline of just per se people that I would add to Jaylene's team or account managers really is by utilizing the networks that our current talent has in order to be able to build upon that. But kind of in tandem with all of that, something that can, really be interesting in the future is even having colleges, community colleges start to explore the different facets and different smaller industries that are within the marketing and publishing space. And maybe being able to, expose students to those specific industries, and then we can connect from there.
No, that's a great input. And that's why I think having these regional advisories specifically in these industries to understand how we can really build that pipeline and what's needed is so important. Jaylene, do you have any other insights that you wanted to add to Tori's point?
Yeah, I think in terms, going off of what Tori says, where we sort of have like our internetwork that builds these partnerships and collaborations, I think part of building that internetwork for some of these entry level roles is to be able to partner with these colleges and start to give them the skills and exposure to this industry that they would want. I noticed that I believe Luke was showing us some of the opportunities they have, and they have two of those e-commerce sort of mentorship clubs programs that people are able to take part of. And being able to look at the versatility of the industry and starting to build network through those programs, whether that's having professionals like myself come in and start to ask questions, start to connect people with mentorship programs. I think that's a great way to begin to develop these collaborations and start to build some of these equitable pipelines.
No, that's a great point. I think exposure and that mentorship is such an important aspect of like really developing somebody's career pathway and if they can see themselves in that. So thank you for sharing that. And Dana, do you have any point to add to that as well?
No. I think there are, so many specific pathways, and obviously even just the few people here representing such diverse pieces of the industry. So I think part of that is education and background, and like we're not even talking about probably, and I don't know the numbers, so maybe I'm putting my foot in my mouth, but like marketing and advertising is one of the few agencies that like every company has this in-house, and like we all represent like industry professionals, but there's industry professionals at every company. And so I think like keeping people's minds open to that like you can be interested in this subject matter or field, but like take it forward at a university has a marketing team. Every organization does. And so I think remembering that like those most kind of general skill sets will always be applicable for organizations that have, those two marketing staffers who are running everything. And so having that ability to see the big picture, the strategy, and jump in and play with things, I think is important, even as the like industry itself becomes more specialized and like those niche skills are needed. So I think there's a twofold approach people can think about as they're approaching the industry.
No, that's a great point. And I think, because it's also so vast and it could be very niche or it could even be very broad, it makes it really great to be able to go into that career pathway because you can do different things if it doesn't apply to you and kind of see what looks like it within either marketing or publishing. Josh, do you have any points within that you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, with regard to partnerships, on sort of the hiring and talent funnel, we utilize quite a few. We partner with Annenberg School of Journalism for our editorial side. We work with the Walter Cronkite School at ASU for journalism as well. On the design side, we've worked in the past with the Otis School of Design for separate projects that we've had. We've worked with CSUN's business program for interns and LMU's business program for interns. Many who've come on and interned with us, and then eventually came back after graduation and are now full-time staffers and positions. It gave them an opportunity to show their skill set, and it also gave them a chance to see what it's like working at our company and our industry. So that has worked out really well, and I think those types of partnerships are welcome in our industry, and I think they're really important as well.
Thank you for sharing that and being open for that as well. I know we had touched base on this a little bit that Luke and Matthew both mentioned how within equity that it's pretty even within gender, but then when it comes to race, it's not so even. So within that, I wanted to see if how can community colleges really help you address the workforce gaps and the needs within that, within marketing and publishing. I wanted to kind of start with Dana's point of view, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely a huge challenge. And we want to see the industry grow to be certainly more representative. Um, I don't know that to me is a more a problem on the hiring side. I don't know that it's something that like we can put at the feet of educators. I do think what I mentioned before about like, LA for this industry, and certainly the creator economy, but advertising at large is such a big play that I think it's attracting talent from across the country. And so people aren't just competing with folks within Los Angeles or for opportunities that are just based here. There's tons of remote work and people wanting to live in LA. We all love it. And I think that makes the job market much, much more difficult. And so I think finding those pathways, those internships, and again, I don't think that that's necessarily an education side. I think it is more industry side, but making sure that we're setting up the pathways for people who are local and who are developing the skill sets needed to find their way into the industry across the spectrum. So yeah, maybe I'll be inspired by some of our other speakers, but I think that's what I have for now.
Thank you for sharing that. Josh, would you like to put any insights into this?
I don't have a lot of insight other than the fact that I agree it's a challenge and it's something that we need more of. I actually took a screenshot on my phone of some of the stats during the presentation. They didn't surprise me though. I can tell you that as I was seeing them, I expected them. From our standpoint, maybe it's more about awareness because I don't see it as so much as a hiring issue. I see it a little bit more of a funnel issue. We don't get as many diverse applicants as is representative of our region. So that could be, perhaps we're not marketing in the right places. Perhaps we need different ways to market the position. Perhaps we need to expand our partnerships. I just gave a list of universities and programs that we work with. Maybe those need to shift and be more inclusive of other regions that might have different students' backgrounds coming from them. So I agree it's a problem. I think that it's something that is an industry, which was very clear in the stats that we saw earlier, we need to address. So I'm open to finding the solution.
Great, thank you for being open for that. And then Tori, I kind of wanted to hear your point of view on that.
Yeah. It's actually really funny. I have a couple of interesting thoughts initially, just hearing perspectives here where, as I mentioned, I'm in the thick of interns at the moment. And it's funny, I looked at, I'm coming to a close on the phone screen week that I've had, and I looked at the candidates that I was highly interested in. And truthfully, they're all female. I have a couple of male candidates, but female candidates really stood out. And I was like, predominantly speaking, I would say that I mostly spoke to females throughout this process. And it wasn't anything other than like I screen resumes and I send messages to the people who have the viable background and don't, and then we kind of gauge from there. But I would say that I definitely have seen a predominant, it's in the female side of interest. So a thought that I have more than anything else to bring it back to the education side is really exposing students to more than just the curriculum. I think that could be really interesting. Even having them partner with opportunities to give these students more real life experience, because I would say that that's essentially what I gravitate towards as well. I'm a huge proponent, especially with interns, that they are not assistants. I know that a lot of hiring managers immediately are like, I got an assistant for the summer. I'm like, no, this is for the student to really understand if this is even what they want to do. I've had internships myself when recognizing that certain paths were just simply not for me. And so I really try and make sure that I create an internship program that gives people that opportunity. But, something that really stands out when you have to screen a student is, are they personable? Are they someone who can be, can acclimate to a work environment for a 9-week program? I think that holding students accountable for qualification that are technical skills sometimes is just really hard. It's hard to not give people an opportunity just because they haven't had one yet. So I really rely more on, can they really hold themselves in a manner that they're going to do well and feel comfortable, especially in the remote workspace that we offer, where, to Dana's point, like, I actually don't just hire in LA. Yes, we are headquartered in LA, but I can hire across the country. So I really do have that opportunity to give a lot of different people a chance to just try something new. But I need to feel that they're going to be able to do that throughout the time here. Going back to our point of being entrepreneurial, that holds true to our interns as well. Like, you have to be able to put yourself out there and be comfortable calling the COO and saying, hi, I have a question. We're all really personable and open, but if you don't start with that exposure to high level executives, people in the professional space, I think starting with the educators putting their students in a space of being exposed and communicating with professionals actually might put them apart when interviewing and talking to recruiters for that next step in their career.
No, that I think that's really important and a great point that you made, especially within like getting that exposure. And then it goes back again to like the soft skills and how important that is to ensure that they have that and they're developing that and getting that exposure within it. Jaylene, do you have any points that you wanted to kind of add to that?
I think this question's tough because there's a lot to consider in terms of how educators can allow for some of these marginalized communities to be able to have the opportunity that Tori outlines, their first chance to really be able to start to build that resume. I think exposure is very important. I think having the awareness of the data is very important on our side as well. But I think in terms of educators and how they can help, is being able to outline some more theories around the social ladder. So while we don't currently have much, Hispanic, Latino, Black, Asian representation in some of these industries, I think a big part of that is some of our current students don't even recognize that can be an opportunity because they don't have someone to model that for them. So being able to diversify some of the literature that they read, to be able to diversify some of the perspectives that they hear from, can allow them to be able to mimic some of these tools that other folks have used, like myself, to be able to break into these industries. I know, for example, I come from a family in the automotive space, so I never would have thought I'd be making, t-shirts and hoodies, etc. But being able to listen to some of the folks who come from the same neighborhoods and the backgrounds from me and understand their pathway really empowered me to be able to find ways to do that. So I think diversifying some of the resources that they have in the classroom will be very beneficial for them.
No, that's a really great point. I think what you see is what you model and like what you are exposed to is how you feel confident going to that, especially as a minority or a different representative. The last thing I kind of wanted to talk about was, do you have what advice would you give to other organizations that are looking to develop equitable talent pipelines within marketing and publishing? Is there anything that you would want to say? And I'll just kind of open the floor to anybody who wants to make any points for that.
Jaylene and I were actually talking about this prior to this session, and something that came up between us, because we've had the opportunity to experience it in real life, is like, really trusting the people you bring into a business is going to be step one there. So like, you have to build and understand that you're finding the right talent for your business, and then good people know good people. So that referral side of our business is so prevalent for us. That I would say, I have experienced for sure in the recruiting space, especially recruiting an enterprise like Fortune 500 companies, that here's your 30-day mark, fill the job. And that's what my task is to fill the job. Bringing it back to like this industry, there definitely are, especially at an entry level, certain things that people need to know, but then also, this also can be fairly variable as far as what skill set is needed. You're coming into let's say a particular company that has a certain aesthetic or a certain voice that they're looking to portray, that maybe this new person that's coming out of college doesn't necessarily know how to write, or B, come up with as far as like graphics go, anything along the lines of a hard skill set. So I would say like putting an emphasis on bringing in talent that is going to be a value add to your business is going to be the first step in really building a good pipeline of people that will continuously grow and diversify your corporation. At least that's what we've found success in here.
No, that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Dana or Jaylene, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think looking at the audience too, I think is so critical for this work, and making sure that like the representation feeds back to who is doing it. So if you're targeting LA County for your product or service, like, and it's a diverse county with majority minority and majority Latino, and you don't have any Latino folks on staff, it's probably a big miss. And so I think looking at that as a pathway, and again, this is, I think, more industry side than on the education side, but reinforcing that as a tool for students and young professionals as like, hey, like I know how to market to my generation, my racial background, to Angelinos, to young people. Like I think, especially as we're seeing such transformative shifts in the industry as we go digital, AI, et cetera, all these things, content creators, leveraging that you are connected and like aware of those trends and like can lean into what are relevant skill sets around that, I think is an important way to develop that pipeline. And that would be my rec for people hiring in this space too, is like, yeah, look at your customers. If you're targeting B2B people nationally, yeah, that's going to be probably a different audience than if you're trying to do B2C in LA and making sure that your talent represents that.
That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Jaylene, any last insights that you have on that?
Yeah, I think a way to build the equitable pipeline for some organizations is to be able to do some of the work internally. Look at your demographics, look at what is least represented, and have conversations. Start to tap into some of those folks for their networks because, like Tori said, good people hire good people. So they probably have a plethora of marginalized folks who they would love to bring up with them. And equally so to what Dana said, look at your audience. Right now, a big trend is people want to use their dollars, use their views in a way that helps others. So really consider the types of communities we're serving and make sure that your organization is also represented by the folks who are part of those communities.
No, that's a really great point that you said. Thank you for sharing. I'm gonna leave the floor open to any questions from anybody from the audience. So if you wanted to get off camera and ask any of the folks on here, this would be a great time. Or if there's any specific questions in the chat.
Alicia, I think Helene had a question that was answered by Dana, but maybe Tori and Jillian have more input. So Helene, if you want to unmute yourself and engage, that'd be great. If not, we can ask directly.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much. So I know that I'm kind of I have like a plug for, the type of work that I do regarding modern apprenticeship programs. But essentially, I'll just give a little bit of an overview. So when we work with the college, let's say there's a specific like marketing curriculum, and we can work with an employer so that students could get hired to work part-time or even full-time, earning a certificate at the college in this specific program and then work at this organization. Some organizations even say like, hey, we really want to invest in, our current employees. We want to invest in their education and have them upskill. So they are welcome to, essentially, that's the incumbent model of apprenticeship programs. So I was just curious if that came up in the marketing industry. I know it's kind of a very new topic, but yeah, the nature of my role, I just, really want to learn more and see where maybe apprenticeship programs can be a benefit.
Yeah, I will say at this time, we have not done anything similar to this, at least to my knowledge. That being said, the only space I could see that potentially working in is going to be more of our like creative graphic space because of the project component to it. A lot of our other departments have some very substantial relationships that they hold with clients. And so to have like part-time people come in and out, I don't know how that would really affect the business in a certain way. But like our creative department could be really interesting should we have like a large level of graphics work that's needed to be done. I'm sure that we'd open to something along those lines, or even potentially like our true marketing department, whether that be for like a website operations side or like an update of our website. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but we haven't done anything similar to it. But I would say that there's a couple of different departments that they may explore, but the vast majority of our business, although, is so client focused that it's hard to kind of adjust those client relationships on a short-term basis, if that makes sense.
Oh, I see. I see. And some apprenticeship programs can even be a little bit more long-term. So it kind of depends. It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility here, but we also have to think about the nature of the work too.
Yeah, I would say like I don't think that we would ever be opposed to it by any means. It's just it's not anything that's come up in our wheelhouse. Just
Right. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Jose?
Yeah, I waited in the chat, but I think, yeah, I've also seen mostly like internships, I think, in the industry. I think it's something interesting to explore, like what is there a pathway there? And I know it's not part of this conversation, but like the film and TV side, like seems like there's probably like, again, more technical long-term roles. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about, and who the right players might be. Again, this could be something where it's, yeah, no, I guess that's it.
It's all good.
Jose, I see that your hand is raised.
Yeah. So I had a question because you guys, I think the whole entire panel brought up a good point of, maybe building equitable pipeline lies in the fact that we don't have exposure. So just kind of landscape of LA, we have close to 10.2 million residents in LA County alone. Around 14% of them are living under poverty. So a lot of work that still needs to be done. So my question, and you brought up different, exposure, capstone projects. We here like to relate that term as work-based learning opportunities across a continuum. So my question is there a specific initiative or department or anything that you're involved with at the community college level where you are providing those work-based learning opportunities to then again close that gap of the demographic kind of dominance of the Caucasian level there that we're seeing across the industry. So anyone, like if there's not, that's also a good thing to kind of hear, right? If there's not any work-based learning opportunities like partnerships or anything involved, like that gives us an understanding of maybe this is a big reason why we should kind of focus more on this specific thing. So just kind of curious.
At this moment, for my team specifically, we're so new and so recently developed. We just hit 1 year in January that we're still kind of getting into the process of how we would bring in someone likely on an internship role. But this year, 2025, we have plans for me as a senior merchandiser and my boss, Nicole, who Tori mentioned is our senior program manager, to start to brainstorm how we can develop some sort of internship role because I brought up that's very important for some of us on the team to be able to give back to our communities and the communities that we both come from and communities we wish to serve. So a lot of us are collaborating this year to start to develop opportunities for next year. So very open to collaborating with folks on the call on how maybe that can be fruitful and things we should focus on and how that can translate into our position and our team.
No, and I appreciate that, Jillian. And I think sometimes we think of like work-based learning opportunity of just internships, but it goes beyond that. I think exposure, just seeing diverse professionals like yourself, Jaylene, like going out into the community and like engaging with them. I mean, all of us here understand the impactful initiative that would be for someone who didn't even know that was a position in itself, right? And I know I mentioned this, but we're seeing a wave of retirement. So right now it's kind of strategic way of making sure that our workforce stays, ahead of some of these trends. So, it involves, whether it be mock interviews, whether it be, presentations, whether it be workplace tours is another one. Just kind of components of like, I think to all of your guys' point, which I think was a great point, is like a lot of our community members just don't know, specifically those that come from disinvested communities, that these are opportunities. So just kind of wanted to throw that out and appreciate the honesty and the willingness to kind of collaborate and figure out ways to kind of expand beyond some of the current workforce trends that are happening right now.
Yeah, and I've had some, not at a community college, which would be open to, but I think like, guest lecturers, having people come in and talk about their specific industry, etc., I think is a great way to segue in what Jaylene is talking about around like demonstrating that representation for people and showing them those pathways. So if that's a larger community college wide, if it's a specific school, I know some professors just like do that on their own, outreach to people they know to bring them in to talk about a specific issue, campaign, skill set, etc. But I think that is a great way to cross-pollinate between industry and young people who are, yeah, looking to see what's possible. And yeah, to our points earlier, like merchandise, custom merchandise is like probably not on someone who's just like, what am I going to do with my life? Friend of mine, but like it's a really cool opportunity. It's a growing industry. And so not only from a representational standpoint of diversity, but as well as from the industry kind of segments. And I think like obviously we haven't mentioned it yet, but like DEI at large, getting clawed back at a lot of big organizations is going to make these efforts by interested individuals and companies all that much more important. And being able to elevate the skill sets, the kind of what I was saying earlier, like making the business case for why you'd be a great hire, totally separate from identity, is unfortunately going to be, I think, more important than ever. So we don't probably need to go too into that, but it's worth pointing out that it's not going to probably get easier in the short term.
And Pablo, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, we just wanted to bubble up a question that was part of the registrations of our participants. There's a question here that says, what ethical considerations around AI generation and data privacy are currently happening within the workforce? Is there any conversations? Is there any considerations? We have a question from our registrants.
I think I mean, we're seeing from a like design studio perspective, like, there's going to be a lot more AI slop in advertising on social and digital. And so having those skill sets, whether to work with AI or to build around it or whatever, to stand out is going to be more important. And that could be video, like it's going to be harder to master and be AI, at least as of right now. And then I think, from a marketer's lens, again, this like AI as a thought partner and strategy and stuff is like, I think it's there. Like trying to be like, it's not ethical is not gonna like help someone move forward in their career, is my personal opinion. So there's certainly ethics involved, but I think from as this like as a tool, again, it would be, I think, mistaken to like be like, it's not ethical, like put it out of your mind kind of thing, because I just don't think that's the reality.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Alicia. I just kind of want to recap, but first I want to kind of thank everyone here in attendance, faculty, deans, speakers. You guys provided amazing feedback and just kind of overview, and we'll be sending a one-pager as well. But on State of the Industry, we saw some great comments by Josh, kind of stating what everyone in the panel said. The digital skills are going to remain important trend. but also focusing on straining that journalism as well. Dana, you made that, I think, great point of being a lifelong learner within that field is important, and that's going to be a trend that continues to be important. And of course, you also mentioned the technology innovation as well. And then Jaylene and Tori, you guys made great comments as well, kind of echoing what Dana and Josh said. But Jaylene, I think it was crucial to say what you said was understanding the history, because a lot of the times that doesn't happen within your industry. And then, within the workforce development, we also heard some great points, some of the platforms that are needed, WordPress, Shopify, Etsy, QuickBooks, these are some of the things that we heard across. And then the importance of soft skills, which I think are still an important topic across any industry. And then just kind of have an understanding on the building equitable pipelines, that there's still a lot of work to be done. Career exposure at a younger age is something that we identified. It's not the fact that industry is not willing, just making also a better partnerships as well that represent our community is crucial, and understanding, as Dana said, who are you working with, who's your audience. So, and then taking an internal kind of look at where you stand. So I think these are great points that will assist our faculty. We look forward to further conversation. I want to thank everyone here as well. I want to thank Lark and the team. If are no other questions, I think we can give you 5 minutes of your morning back. But again, truly appreciate everyone. Other than that, I hope you have a great weekend, and appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.